Viewer discretion is highly urged before we start. These are solely for enjoyment and instructional needs. Inner City Press reports the exact federal courtroom testimony from the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Nobody counted on him showing up. Cassie, Will Smith, Monique, and others had already testified before the court. But everything changed when Ice Cube entered the courthouse doors. A guy who created his legacy by never backing down suddenly stands face to face with the system he once tried to walk around, and today he marches straight through it. Cube was not there for headlines. He was not there for celebrity. He was there to testify, and his arrival, documents, voice recordings, names, and connections, made the whole courtroom stop. This was about an industry, a hidden system of control, manipulation, and exploitation supported by the same individuals we have been trained to worship, not only about Diddy now. The narratives, including Jamie Foxx, Oprah Winfrey, Quincy Jones, and others, now included Ice Cube as a witness. It was meant to be simply another procedural day. Diddy's legal team changed their ties, acting cool while the walls silently fell around them. The cameras outside the courtroom buzzed. Reporters scurried through paperwork. Then the doors opened, and Ice Cube, no entourage, no press statement, just Cube carrying a manila folder, eyes focused forward, strolling across the room like a man who'd been waiting years for this moment. The whispers came on right away. A few of the jurors sat straight. Even the judge leaned back in his chair as he seemed unsure of what was about to transpire. Diddy first didn't even glance up, but when he did, his face turned pale. Cube remarked, "I wasn't called. I wanted to talk." The court nodded. Something in his voice. Steady, hefty. It sounded like testimony that had been seething under hip-hop's surface for 3 decades, not like rehearsed. "Some of y'all didn't realize I'm not part of the club," he remarked first, which infuriated them. The court went quiet. Cube neither spoke as an actor, nor as a rapper. He spoke as a man who had survived the system, saw others fall into it, and at last chose to pull the lid off the whole thing. He started with the club, the one nobody names but everyone knows, the insiders, the gatekeepers, the people who smile on television and run everything behind the curtain. "They like you," Cube replied. "They don't want you in. They desire you so they may control you. When you say no, that's when it starts." He turned to face Diddy, who was obviously uncomfortable now. "That's when they start with the whispers. The canceled meetings, the negative press, the false scandal, the calls you don't even hear them make." Every word Cube spoke hung in the courtroom. Good individuals, true artists brought in, granted a taste, he had seen it happening again and over. Of the kingdom, and then advised to kneel, they want you to sign the paper. If you don't play the part, they make sure you never work again. He made it plain Diddy was operating the club, not simply visiting it. Paused, he said. "Would he want a break?" the judge inquired. Shaking his head was Ice Cube. He looked once more towards the jurors. "You want to know why I'm here?" he asked. "Because Jamie Foxx sought to break a man I respect." The pens of the reporters stopped, you could hear. Every eye in the court changed. Cube said it began as it always does, with the appearance of friendship, the open invites, the parties, the phone calls from individuals you never would have dreamed would have your number. Jamie was emerging talent, unquestionable vitality, unparalleled ability, and that's when they circled. "First it's flattery," Cube remarked, "then it's favors, then it's domination." Jamie Foxx confided in him more than once, he told the jurors, gently, carefully, frightened. "They call you clever if you join them. They bring you in like family. But if you don't..." He let the stillness respond. Cube testified on the notorious basketball parties, the no phones policy, the black SUVs, the unusual visitors. "It wasn't only basketball," he declared. "It turned out as a test. They wanted to know who you would follow, who you would challenge, and who you would guard." Jamie played it cool, laughed it off, stayed courteous. but he never really gave in. And that's when the whispers got underway. He suddenly seems too difficult. His health becomes a concern. He disappears from headlines but shows up on the gossip. Blogs. Cube claimed that the medical crises of 2023 was not coincidental. That was retribution. That was a warning shot garbed as a difficulty. Diddy's group, he added, created archives, cameras, footage, moments you never knew were being captured, not merely through parties. And once they had it, they maintained it and applied it. Cube told the jurors Jamie had once contacted him following a Diddy event. He stated Fox was startled, not delving further. "Cube, I can't discuss it, but I can't unsee it either," he remarked. If the courtroom wasn't astonished before, it was now since Oprah's name came next out of Cube's mouth. He said, "Not only Puff, this has layers." He said Jamie had a discreet phone call from Oprah herself immediately before the Oscar buzz, right after Ray, amid the height of Jamie's ascent. "You are blowing it," she said. Cube did not waver in his recounting. Jamie was startled, he claimed. He assumed she was phoning to congratulate him, but she was calling to straighten him out. He needed to get things together, she informed him. She then informed him she was driving him to someone who might be of use. Quincy Jones was the person there. Cube informed the courtroom that everyone in Hollywood already knew. He did not have to explain who Quincy was. Quincy has long been a shadow character, lauded on the surface but feared behind the scenes, he claimed. She drove Jamie to Quincy's residence as though it were an intervention. Still, it was acquiescence. It wasn't healing. He spoke to the jurors. Jaime said that evening was the oddest of his life. He claimed he felt he was being trained, not being assisted. He felt he was being prepped. Cube made it quite evident that Jaime's explanation for what transpired at Quincy's house that evening was insufficient. That was the look in his eyes as he tried. Cube then started to approach closely. Quincy termed legacy. Oprah called it obligation. Actually, though, they were giving him a leash. Following that conference, Cube claimed Jaime began to change, not because he wanted, but rather because he had to. "Cube, the only way to stay alive in this game is to pretend," he told me, and I watched that man pretend for years. He stopped. But these days nobody's faking. Ice is. As Cube mentioned Quincy Jones as the following name, he did not waver. Said slowly, "Ain't just a producer in this town, he's a godfather." Not even a breath moved the courtroom. Cube respectfully turned. Towards the judge? "This is truth, not rumor. It must be noted on record." Quincy's name was spoken behind closed doors for decades, respected publicly but dreaded privately, he told the jurors. And how did he come to acquire that fear? Well, that's the element people only touch on in songs and coded interviews. Cube forward-leaning. You don't grow as strong as Quincy without making bargains. I'm talking soul transactions, not financial deals. The kind of arrangements devoid of contracts simply under control rather than contractual basis. He said that Jamie Foxx's connection with Quincy was not accidental. Oprah set up that meeting as a handoff, not a laid-back gathering. Cube stated Jaime was being handed between handlers. The space was absolutely quiet. Later, he told me, "Cube, it wasn't advice he gave me. It was instruction." Cube claimed Quincy turned the meeting into mentoring, but Jaime knew better. It felt, he said, like being processed, not helped. Cube told the jury that he had heard similar tales from other men in the business, those who disappeared from the limelight, changed their public image suddenly, or experienced silent breakdowns and are never heard from again. Quincy's approach was charm, but his message was the same as Diddy's. Follow instructions or else we'll see to it you never work again. Then he mentioned something far more sinister. Cube said he has seen private pictures, old ones, past, around subtly over the years. Images not meant for publication. And Quincy was in the background grinning every time, but the folks in the pictures weren't grinning. Though he couldn't verify what he had observed, he told the court, Quincy is A middleman rather than a mentor. We still lack names for the folks he answers to as well. Cube towered above me. I want to talk about how they keep you quiet, he remarked, because it's blackmail, not just fear. Diddy's power, he informed the jurors, was found in what he kept, the videos, the tapes, not only in his money. Secrets gathered over decades, gathered from parties, studios, private planes, hotel rooms, all cataloged, all ordered, all protected. They log you at those events, not only invite you to a party. Cube turned her gaze towards the prosecution. Over the years, you want to know how many people remained silent, inquire about the number of flash drives sent in the mail without a return address, find out how many received a call from a blocked number playing audio of them engaging in activities they cannot remember. Find out how many careers vanished following a no answer. He added Jamie Foxx wasn't the only one. He knew at least 2 more performers who had been compromised at one of Diddy's most notorious concerts. One of them phoned Cube directly, terrified, claiming he couldn't recall anything past midnight, but woke up in a hotel with a contract on the table and pictures on his phone that didn't belong there. Cube said you were theirs, not free after. They had you. Many people smile through it for this reason as well. They thus share images, chuckle in interviews, do red carpets like nothing's wrong. Because the archive locks off without them. He said Diddy lets his ecosystem handle threats. He doesn't personally deliver them. Publicists, reporters, executives, stylists. He won't tell you. You will feel it everywhere. And abruptly, the gossip. Blogs turn on you when someone tries to distance themselves. Old cases come back open. Old rumors come back active. You suddenly seem unstable, challenging, dangerous to handle. Cube claimed Jaime started distancing himself and then underwent that same slander campaign. He now has health issues. He is losing it, and there are whisper campaigns he is unreliable. Nah, he was releasing himself. They object to running. The voice of Cube somewhat dropped. He changed the microphone and cast a glance at the jury. Like the truth pulling the breath out of the room, the courtroom had gotten colder somehow. I visited one of them, and he said just once. He said it. Occurred in the early 2000s. A discreet invitation, not a party poster, not a press invite, just a name, a time, a car waiting outside his hotel. They claimed it was a networking night. That is, what they constantly refer to as Cube, says he came upon a large Beverly Hills estate. Once he entered, it was an operation rather than a party. The gate locked behind him, phones taken at the entry. He described low lighting, no music, just ambiance, people muttering, security at every corner, and most terrifying, unlabeled rooms. Only doors, some cracked wide, some with odd sounds behind them. He said he identified people, some appearing afraid, some looking bewildered. He suddenly came upon something he never forgot. One of the most well-known names in the business, a man I respected, flopped over on a couch with wide-open eyes and a camera squarely focused at him. Cube claimed he spun around and left, didn't say goodbye, didn't ask questions, just walked out and got back in the car. He called a blocked number the following day, said another way, "We saw you leave." He said nothing ever came of it, but I understood what it was, so he never returned. That was a trap, not a celebration. Looking directly at Diddy, Cube stated, "You didn't just ruin lives, you filmed them first." The court stop had to wait. There was shaking among the court reporters. Diddy's attorney fiercely murmured into his ear, but Puff ignored. Jaw locked, he looked ahead as cameras were not his this time. The courtroom no longer felt like a courtroom by the time Ice Cube arrived at this point in his testimony. It felt like a confession box, a reckoning. Even Diddy's lawyers had ceased objecting. Cube wasn't finished and damage had already been done. They tried to obliterate Jaime Foxx, he alleged, not only to quiet him. Silence is enforced in Hollywood, he informed the jurors, not sought for. It is achieved by patterns, pressure, and precision strikes that give the impression of someone quietly slipping off the radar. Underneath the surface, though, it's surgical. Things started happening, Cube said, once Jaime left those gatherings. Roles he affirmed vanished, rumors abound all around. He's a legend one day, then he's erratic, challenging, untrustworthy. Cube stopped, allowing the word to hang. They make extensive use of that one. Troublesome. It is code meaning, he said, no. He handed out a file including Jaime's calendar of meetings and appointments between 2019 and 2021. The jurors was perplexed until Cube pointed up a string of cancel-alls, back to back, all linked to executives with direct ties to Bad Boy, Revolt TV, or one of Diddy's satellite businesses. Consistency? Not an opportunity. Jaime's Netflix projects were moved, he said. Scripts he was due to create were suddenly caught in legal, and collaborators he had worked with for years stopped responding. And then arrived the health alert. Quietly, Cube said. Glanced down for a time, then said on. You honestly think that was natural? That a man in great condition like Jaime simply collapses during filming? That it occurs immediately following his noisemaking about what he observed? Cube didn't accuse. He implied. But the weight behind his words made it clear what he believed. I don't know what happened in that hospital, he said, but I know fear and I know retaliation. And that wasn't just a medical incident. That was a message. Cube claimed Jaime was being punished, not just for what he said, but for what he refused to be. A puppet, a mouthpiece, a tool. He said Jaime was offered multiple chances to come back into the fold. They offered him roles. They offered him press. Redemption. All he had to do was smile, shake hands, and act like nothing happened. But Jaime refused. That's when they tried to replace him. That's when the clone rumors started. That's when people started asking if he was even alive. That's what they do. They deconstruct you piece by piece until even your fans don't know what's real. Cube's voice dropped again. That's how they keep our power, not with fear, but with eraser. There's something y'all need to understand, Cube said as the jury leaned forward. This ain't about music. It's not even about parties. It's about culture engineering. He looked around the courtroom, locking eyes with the prosecution. They don't just control what you hear, they control what you believe, what you fear, what you become. Cube explained that Hollywood, at least the version run by the club, is a machine, a system designed to weaponize identity, trauma, and rebellion, and sell it back to the people as entertainment. You think it's all freedom, all expression? Nah, it's scripted. Every album they push, every movie they fund, it's by design. He paused, then dropped the line that sent ripples through the room. The same people who push prison music own the prison. That quote, Cube explained, was one of the things Tupac tried to warn the world about before he was silenced, before he became too political, before he started talking about who really runs the industry. Cube testified that Diddy wasn't just a bad actor. He was a conduit, a chosen face, handpicked to glamorize the very lifestyle that destroys people. And anyone who didn't follow suit? They got no airtime, no marketing budget, no label support. You rap about building something, you get shelved. You talk about healing, you get labeled corny. Cube even alleged that artists with spiritual or anti-industry messages had their studios raided, their hard drives hacked, and their accounts frozen. The club didn't just want you entertaining, they wanted you obedient. He connected it back to Diddy's parties, said they were more than indulgent playgrounds. They were vetting rooms, places where artists were tested on camera. If you played along, you were protected, but if you stepped out of line, you got framed or disappeared. He referenced a known singer who once refused to sign with Bad Boy after a party invitation. Within months, she was painted as unstable, dropped from her label, and quietly written out of every award show. You think that was her? Just being erratic? Number punishment. Cube looked back at the jury and said what nobody else had dared to say so far in the trial. Y'all sitting here trying to figure out what Diddy did, but the question you need to ask is, how many people helped him do it? And in that moment, the trial stopped being about Diddy alone. It became a mirror. The judge asked if he wanted to give closing words. Cube nodded. He stepped away from the stand, walked to the center of the courtroom, and stared directly at Diddy. "You built a kingdom out of other people's silence," he said. "You called it success, but it was slavery." Diddy didn't move. He was pale, eyes locked. Cube continued, "You didn't just throw parties. You created prisons, emotional ones, psychological ones, and you filled them with people who thought they were being celebrated, but were really being captured." He turned toward the gallery. "To every artist watching this, to every kid dreaming of making it in music or film, ask yourself, who's standing at the door of that dream? Who's holding the key? And what do they expect from you before they'll let you in?" He took a breath. "I stayed quiet for a long time because I thought I had to, because I thought staying quiet made me safe. But you know what staying quiet does?" He turned back toward the jury. "It makes you a collaborator." He opened the folder. He brought in and removed a photograph. This was me in 1991, bright-eyed, believing I could change the game, that I could make art without losing my soul. He held up the photo, then slowly tore it in half. That version of me didn't survive, but this version, the one who came here today, he ain't afraid of none of you anymore. He walked back to the stand, placed the folder down, and looked at the judge. "I don't know what you'll do with all this, but now you know. You all know." He faced Diddy one last time and said, "You thought nobody would talk, that you had it all. Locked down, but now the door's wide open." He stepped down, walked past the gallery, didn't look at the press, didn't look at the jury, and just before he exited, he turned his head slightly and said, "They didn't kill Jaime. They didn't kill me, they just made us louder." And with that he left the courtroom, but what he left behind would echo forever.